Hey everyone, it's Keisha. Welcome to Healer's Guide to Heroic Stone Guards. For healers, there really isn't a huge difference between the normal and heroic Stone Guards fight, with the exception of higher damage and one new mechanic that involves energizing floor tiles on either side of the room to provide damage and spirit buffs to all raid members. We will of course discuss this later in the guide. Since this fight is all about execution, the recommended number of healers is around 6. Anything more and your DPS will have a hard time, generally speaking. Raid cooldowns are used at the beginning, 75% and 40% parts of the fight, roughly, as well as whenever guardians are overloaded, although that part is variable depending on the fight. There are 4 guardians in the fight: Jade, Amethyst, Cobalt, and Jasper, and each one of these has a separate ability to be aware of in terms of healing and avoidance. These are of course identical to normal mode abilities. Amethyst pools are purple void zones that do massive damage and spawn frequently, every 5 to 10 seconds. There is no way to get rid of the pools, so you will just have to avoid them for the duration of the fight. Each pool will last 80 seconds. Cobalt mines are the blue crystals that spawn every 10 seconds, and you have about 3 seconds to get outside of the light blue circle on the ground. If you stay, you will take damage and get frozen for 6 seconds. You can get rid of them by standing and letting yourself get frozen, but it is recommended only to do that when the blue guardian is active, thus taking 90% less damage from them. Jade shards are just AoE damage that happens every 10 seconds, and they're unavoidable and not extreme. Jasper chains are perhaps the most complicated mechanic, as they involve the coordination between the 2 raid members that are linked together. Just by having them, each person linked gets a stacked dot on them, and the longer you are separated by more than 10 yards, the more the dot stacks on you, up to 15 stacks, and thus the more damage you take. The accepted way of dealing with Jasper chains is just to stay within 10 yards of that person so the dot doesn't stack up, until a Jasper guardian is activated, which means that you will take 90% less damage from Jasper sources, meaning chains. If a melee and a ranged or healer are linked, it is generally the ranged or healer's responsibility to stay within the range of that melee member so that they can continue to DPS. You can ping pong the chains, meaning spread to greater than 10 yards for a few stacks and then come back in to get healed up, but it is not recommended since the damage is so extreme in heroic mode and healers have enough to deal with generally. Just have your DPS and healers wait until Jasper Guardian activates, which sometimes could be a while, but it is better than the alternative. Either way, to remove this debuff, you have to stand 10 yards apart from the linked person until you gain 15 stacks, and then it will go away. The only other mechanic in this fight is called Petrification, and this is mainly a tank coordination issue, so I won't spend too long on it. The only thing healers need to be aware of is that to prevent 100% petrification, meaning a raid wipe, that you will have to overload one of the guardians, which causes 120k damage to whatever school of magic was just overloaded, either shadow, arcane, nature, or fire. And thus healers will have to be aware of when overloads happen in order to push for more healing for that short amount of time. The new heroic mechanic involves energizing the tiles, or lighting them up, on either side of the rug in the middle of the room. Tile energizers are usually DPS typically, though healers can certainly help. Any class with a significant damage reduction and or healing as they go would work fine. I would peg druids as best if you want a healer to help some, symbiosis a DK or monk for a free damage reduction cooldown alongside their bark skin and or iron bark. To get the debuff required to energize tiles, you must click one of the 4 crystals in the room, one for each guardian. When they are energizing tiles, they will have a dot that ticks per second, starting at 60k a second, and going down each tile they energize. It is important for these DPS to communicate when they first get the debuff, as they'll need a good chunk of healing initially. The crystal debuff causes magic damage that represents one of the guardians. This means with the damage reduction of whatever guardian is active, the person will take 90% reduced damage. For example, if a Cobalt is activated, then you will take 90% less arcane damage, and thus the person with the Cobalt crystal debuff, called Living Cobalt, will take very little damage while energizing their tiles. So you really only have 3 people to contend with as far as healing this specific mechanic. It is only necessary to energize roughly 100 tiles, which is about half the actual tiles in the room, aka you don't have to have the entire room lit up in order to be effective. To track this, you can watch your energized tiles buff. Once you have that many stacks, you can continue to DPS until 75 and 40%, which is when the tiles reset, and you will need to use an additional raid cooldown as a healing steroid at this point. All in all, this fight is about executing mechanics. For the healers, we have to avoid everything and continue our impressive healing outputs. Tanks have to deal with swapping out guardians to prevent petrifications and excessive overloads, and DPS have to avoid mechanics, energize tiles, and DPS. This is one fight that is not easier on any one role, so have fun in your attempts, and good luck. If you found this guide helpful, please subscribe or comment below. Thank you. If you're looking for another boss guide to any of the 3 instances in Mists of Pandaria, please click the appropriate name in your screen now.